Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 6 Things That We Learned from Walsall FC 2 at Bradford City 3. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 80 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're now on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below on our 6 talking points that we do go on to discuss in today's video. I am once again joined by Korban, and before we start, I've got a very itchy eye, so if you see me gouging my eyeball out at any point in today's video, just completely ignore it. But we'll start out then with box number 1, and it might be slightly controversial, but I've gone with a yellow box for Jamie Walker. Now, the first 65 minutes or so, absolutely brilliant, but then stupidly gets himself sent off. You know, he gets 2 goals and an assist in there, but then something that we've seen for not the first time, he gets 2 very silly yellow cards, and now he's going to be suspended for what is currently our biggest game of the season. I would always say your next game is your biggest game, but given the circumstances, Tuesday is a must-win. Walker, when he's been fit on the whole, has had a pretty decent season, and now he's going to miss that game and be suspended for it, which is obviously a massive loss for us because his discipline is really disappointing, but we'll come to that in a moment. Starting out with his goal contributions, I think the cross for Andy Cook's goal is a really good cross, and that's the type of service that Andy Cook thrives upon, and they're the sort of deliveries that he needs into the box. You know, it's not a perfect ball in. Cook still has a lot of work to do, but it's in that sort of area, and when you've got a striker like Andy Cook who's so good at heading the ball, like what it is, you've just got to put it in an area, and Walker certainly did that, and it was a great ball in and great for Cook to get back on the score sheet. His first goal that he scores as well, great ball into the box from Richie Smallwood, a good header across from Andy Cook, and Jamie Walker is in the right place at the right time to head home. He loses his marker very well, very similar goal to what we scored last week against Salford in terms of Callum Kavanagh's finish, and obviously Walker's second goal and our third goal, he's just in the right area, and obviously great work from Bobby Poynton, gets the ball into the box. Andy Cook gets a little bit unlucky with the header. We get quite lucky in terms of where it falls in the box, and it falls right to Walker's left foot, and he smashes it into the top corner. A really, really good finish, but then he picks up a very silly yellow card for something which he doesn't really need to do. You know, their goalkeeper picks up the ball and he's obviously going to clear it down the field, and Walker just trips him up. It's really, really silly yellow card, and one he definitely doesn't need to take. But I think for me personally, the most disappointing one of the two is the second one, because he knows he's already on a booking. He knows that this referee, he did look a little bit dodgy, did yesterday's match official, and Walker just decides to pull someone back on a promising counter-attack in quite a silly area. And while it looks very soft, and I don't think it's much of a pullback, you can clearly see his shirt doesn't come away from his body. Walker has got a hold of it, and the referee, as soft as what he was, I think probably does make the right decision. And like I say, massively disappointing that he does get himself sent off. And then we've got to defend against a decent Walsall side for the next 25, 30 minutes, whatever it was, with 10 men. And at times we were getting a little bit overrun. We got away with a few crosses and balls into the box and shots that kind of hit the right bodies and thankfully didn't find the back of our net. But Walker's discipline, for not the first time in his Bradford City career, did let him down yesterday. And that's why it's a yellow box, because when he was on the pitch, it was a green box comfortably, but he stupidly got himself sent off in a massive game for us, and I can't give him any more than a yellow for me.
Do you think the referee had a good game then?
Not particular. I thought there were a few really soft fouls, and I wouldn't say he's the best we've had. We obviously had a lot worse because it's League Two, but yeah, I wouldn't say he was particularly great.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's being biased here, but I thought it when neither of them were bookings, to be honest with you. I can understand why they can be given as bookings, but I don't think they are. I think the first one, it's petulant from the goalkeeper. It's Essalsary. You know, he's barely touched him. I think he's just given him a little tap and he's fallen over like a sack of potatoes. You know, he's just gone rolling down and bought the yellow. The ref's fallen for it. And then the second one, I've watched it back and he's just holding his hand. You know, I can understand it if he's pulled his shirt, if he's tripped him up, if it's anything like that. But it's just a little hold of his hand. And for me, the ref should understand that if he's giving a red card for that, because essentially, it's a red card, second yellow, then it should be a much more high level of an offence than just holding someone's hand. And again, he goes rolling on the floor. They don't know what they're doing. I think that's what we can improve on, being a bit more SL. So, buying more yellow cards and free kicks. They were doing it all game. I also thought they could have had a couple of reds. There were a couple for violent conduct, but I thought, there needs to be questions asked here. Danny Johnson, is it Danny? Anyway, the striker who at Mansfield, he came on and he were wrestling Richards. He tried buying a penalty, never a penalty for Walsall. Free kick for us, ref got that right, and then he didn't get it. So not only, is he reacting to referee not getting his decision, he then slammed his hand down and nearly full-on hit Richards in the head, which is violent conduct for me. And then Smallwood gets strangled by Tom Knowles. Could have killed him, quite literally, because, that's GBS. And then Smallwood reacts, tosses him to the ground. He gets booked for it. So it's an equal offence for Smallwood nearly getting killed by getting strangled by Tom Knowles, who again was just trying to wind us up. And, if he's trying to wind all our players up, he gets booked, then surely he should have had a red as well. So for me, they should have had 2 reds. We got the 1. And, he got the penalties right. He didn't fall for their idiotic shouts. But, yeah. Not a red for me for Walker, and he had a pretty poor game, the referee. But Jamie Walker is a brilliant footballer, and he showed that again. Tenacious in midfield. I thought that was something where we looked like we were open. When we've conceded a lot of goals so far this season, the Mansfield, the Notts County, Harrogate, and then the 2 in the first 20 minutes here, it's when the midfield's completely open and Smallwood's not getting any support, and Pointer and Walker were to advance. And I thought, is it worthwhile them dropping in a bit more, and maybe even Kavanagh dropping in as well? And they did that a bit more, and Walker did well. The first goal, we'll get into it, I'm sure, when we come to Oyogoki, but it is Walker's man. He lets him go. But in the final third, he's got that anticipation. He's got that nous in the box, so that, when the balls are bouncing in around the areas, he's in the right areas, and he's got a good finish on him and put the ball in the back of the net, got the win. And his energy is vital for us, and I'm sure he's going to be someone we miss on Tuesday night. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask you that. Who do you think replaces Walker? Because this season in League Two, he's managed 26 starts, 29 games in all competitions, 7 goals and 5 assists, 12 goal contributions in just the 26 starts. For a Bradford City midfielder, that is an outstanding return. When you look at some of the other midfielders and their 1, 2, 3, 4 goal contributions a season, Walker's played just over half the season and got well into double figures for goal contributions. So who do you think replaces Walker? Do you go a bit more defensive with Gilead? Do you go with a bit more attacking flair in Clark Adore maybe?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because both have done well off the bench, I think, in the last few games. Odvar gives us that more creativity, like you say, and against a team like Barrow, I think you do need that energy in the midfield with Gilead. I think, well, personally, I'd start them both. I think Poynton's not had a great couple of games, so I'd bring Gilead and Odvar in for Walker. And I think they both adequate replacements for him for a game where you're not going to miss him too much. I think Odvar, last couple of months, has massively improved and done well. And Gilead, he's got that like-for-like energy of Walker. In terms of contributing in the attacking areas, he hasn't got that really, which is something that he needs to improve on if he wants to be starting next season.
Yeah, but I think Gilead will bring a bit more defensive nous. And again, when you're playing away from home against a playoff chasing team, regardless of what their form is, I do think you need to have that little bit more defensive cover. And I think Gilead's got a bit more about him where if a player gets past him, Gilead will then try and bust the gut to get back, whereas Walker might take the cynical yellow. And Barrow, a lot of big physical plays. We can't be giving away some silly, cheap free kicks on Tuesday. But we'll move on then to our second box of today's video. I've gone with a green box for Richie Smallwood. And I know it's kind of getting to the point where I'm becoming a Smallwood fan club, and I don't think there's many people in that fan club. But again, I thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. Graham Alexander comes out in his post-match interview and says he doesn't think we would win the game without Smallwood. And I would have to agree, the amount of last-ditch tackles, but in particular blocks that he was putting in, I could say maybe a good 2 or 3 where they also got shots off on the edge of the box, and they've certainly got players who can hit a ball like Tom Knowles, Isaac Hutchinson, and Small was throwing himself at them, getting in the way of them, and that is so massive for us. And I know, you know, he doesn't get praise from certain people because he doesn't score 20 goals a season. Sometimes his set pieces can be poor, but again, yesterday we scored from another one of his set pieces, and I do think they have been much better recently. I know against Salford he had that one where he passed it straight out of play looking for Tyreek Wright, but not every set piece is going to be perfect. You know, when was the last time we had a set piece taker who was outstanding at every single corner or free kick that they took? You know, Smallwood does get quite a lot wrong, but he's also getting a fair few right at this moment in time, and I do think we need to give him credit for that. But his leadership, for me personally, I think is massive. His experience in there as well. I think it's pretty obvious Richie Small will be here next season as long as Graham Alexander is still the manager. And for me personally, I have no complaints with that. I think out of possession is absolutely brilliant, but his leadership in that last 10-15 minutes, or even when Walker got sent off and went down to 10, his organisation I thought was really important for us. But the amount of last-ditch tackles and blocks, and even towards the end of the game where you mentioned it, where he's winding up one of their players and he gets a reaction out of him just to slow the clock down, to take the sting out of the game as well when Walsall were building pressure. I think his experience is massive for us, and I thought again yesterday had a really, really good game, so he gets a green box from me.
Yeah, I agree, and definitely on if Small wasn't playing, we won that game because of everything you said there. His experience was vital for us. The way that it just led everyone on, and I think Alexander, said that everyone was sort of looking up to him, and you need those leaders. Has he done it enough? No, and that's a frustration for me with Small. I think if he played that every week, we'd be right up there, because sometimes his job. I mean, even first half, I think it was all right. First half, no one played well, really, especially the first 20 minutes. And obviously weren't getting much support there. But that first 20 minutes was a test of character for everyone in that squad. We've got to hold on. We've got our backs up against the wall. We've got to get bodies on the line, and they were fighting for every cross that came in, every shot that came in, and he was a real warrior today. And like I say, on the set piece, he's massively improved recently. His delivery's been great, but I think it's also because we look to have a clear plan of what we want to do with set pieces. I mean, obviously before there will have been some form of instructions, and we'll have worked on them, but not as much as we have under Alexander, because I think it's clear to see there's been a massive
improvement,
emphasis on set pieces recently, because set pieces are so important. If you're down at the bottom for conceding them and scoring them, then you're going to be somewhere down the bottom of the table, and that's where we were before. We haven't conceded a set piece in a while. We've been scoring from them as well, and that's how we've been getting these little wins. We didn't concede a set piece yesterday, against Walsall, and they're probably the best team in the league from set pieces. Absolutely brilliant from them. So again, that's testament to the people working on them. Do you feel like Small set pieces have improved just because its delivery has been working on it more? Do you feel like because of the sort of routine we've got now with the sort of back post cross towards Platt and Cook and flick it onto the front post, there's more of an identity for him to work with?
I wouldn't necessarily say that Smallwood set pieces have improved. I would say maybe under Mark Hughes, it was an extreme of either massively at the near post and hope Cook gets a flick on, or really deep to the back post and try and head it back across goal. Whereas now I think Alexander's trying to put it in, like if you break it up into thirds or even quarters, he's trying to put it in between. And I feel like when you put it in an area, and we've got quite a lot of big physical players who get into the box, and we'll have probably a couple more on Tuesday as well. We're obviously losing Walker, and you expect Gillard to come in. It adds a little bit more height. We've certainly got the bodies in there, and I just think having more height in there and not playing as many small technical players as what we were under Mark Hughes, I certainly think that obviously helps. I think I remember, pretty sure it was Danny Cowley saying something like in League One last season, there was over 100 restarts per game, or it's something like that. Basically, either a throw-in, free kick or corner was given once every 60 seconds, which is so massive in football, and especially at League 2 level. The amount of set play goals that you score or concede, certainly the amount of set play goals that you see, you need to be strong from them. I think we've been pretty strong for them defensively for the large part. There has been the odd exception here and there where we have just completely fallen asleep. You think Forest Green at home for their first goal, but for the large part, I do think defensively we have been pretty strong. It's just been going forward. We've never really scored from them, but recently we certainly have done, especially from them second phase and second contacts of set plays as well.
Yeah, and just on that, on the bus to the Walsall game, there were like all the highlights from the 12-13 season, and basically every game was a corner goal or a free kick, and that's all we worked on. And obviously, that's how we end up going up. And again, that shows how important they are. That the promotion winning teams, you look at Stevenage was last season. If you're strong from set pieces, 9 times out of 10, you're the team that goes up.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully that whatever division we're in next season, and it's crazy that we're still talking about the potential of promotion, but I think we need to have this consistent of scoring goals from set plays. But we'll move on then to our third box of today's video. It's the only red box of today's video, and it's for Daniel Oyegoke. Now, it might be a little bit harsh, but when you consider some of the other players who have given yellow boxes to, I couldn't justify yellow for Oyegoke because I thought he was poor. I think the second goal, he is massively to blame. I would say Walker is probably the biggest culprit, but I'll probably only say maybe 55-45 between him and Oyegoke. I mean, even Platt had a stinker, who we're not going to talk about him in today's video, but I thought equally Matty Platt had a very, very, very poor first half. But on the first goal, I mentioned it in yesterday's match reaction, I think for me personally, Oyegoke should realise that Brad Halliday's far too far up the pitch to cover that position, and Oyegoke should let his man go and pass him across to a Platt or Kieran Kelly. Now, I think we tried to do that against Salford, and that's where their goal comes from, a lack of communication. But Oyegoke is about a yard or two behind the defensive line, and Sturck just burst through the midfield, and it's a great run from him, you know, especially in that first 20 minutes. They completely overran us in that midfield, which I didn't really understand considering it was 3v3 in the midfield. But it's also a pretty decent finish from Ryan Sturck. Could Sam Walker close down that angle a little bit better? I think so, but Oyegoke left such a massive gap when it was always a pretty big gap because of how high up the pitch Halliday was. And I know that's kind of the risk you play, you know, it's high risk versus high reward, but sometimes it is a very high risk and you do get punished for it, and Walsall punished us for it, and Oyegoke's positioning again was pretty underwhelming. But the second goal for me, I think, is the most frustrating one because the goalkeeper boots the ball long. Platt is about 3 yards away from it. He massively mistimes his header, and then Oyegoke, for a centre-half, just doesn't want to head the ball, and we said this about him a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, recently he has been quite good. His performances had improved, but on that goal, he just needs to head it out for a corner. If your keeper is not coming out for the ball, and you can clearly see that he's not, Walker is a goalkeeper who will only come out if he absolutely needs to, and even then when he absolutely needs to, he sometimes doesn't, and he does get caught flat-footed at times. But he's in two minds, is Sam Walker, and I think that comes from Oyegoke not making the decision. He's trying to shield off the striker, does a really poor job of it, and Mofal gets kind of in between them, or he gets the header in before either of them can deal with it, and it's just an absolute calamity. And you think 2-0 down after 16 minutes with the start we'd had and the start Walsall had, you're thinking we're in for a pretty long day here. You know, it could be 4, 5 or 6, but we showed real good character to get back into this game. I can't remember the last time we were 2-0 down and won a game. Don't think it happened at all under Mark Hughes, so big credit to the team. But Oyegoke, for me personally, I thought yesterday was back to the worst that we've seen from Oyegoke. And again, Alexander talking about having him back for next season. I just think we need better than players like Daniel Oyegoke. Unless he's going to be a 6th choice centre-half and an absolute last resort, I don't see him in my personal plans for next season. I personally, you know, we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, probably do see him going to the National League. He could maybe get a bottom-end League 2 club, but I don't think he's good enough to be in a team who are challenging for promotion and wanting to win the league next season. And again, yesterday, poor game, so I'll go in the red box for him.
The thing with Oyegoke is why I wouldn't be against it if we got him back next year. I don't think we will. I think he's had a few too many of games like yesterday for us to sign him. I think it'd be a big problem for the club if they signed a player like him back. If you go and bring back a Tompkinson or a Wright like we did in January, then there's optimism and excitement towards a deal. But I feel like you kind of know what you're going to get with him. He's versatile, and yeah, he was at fault for the second goal mainly. I feel like you've just got to clear it. You know, get your head on it to keeper, or if you're that undecided, just kick out for a corner. You know, and I think that way he just looks a bit lost sometimes. And the first one, like you say, I agree. You know, he's just being caught tracking his man instead of sticking to his zone. Probably a bit of naivety with his age there, and a lack of experience to understand his surroundings. You know, if Platt's marking that space, you don't need to go and cover it and leave your space completely open. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, he didn't have a great game, but then no one did first 20, and I'm not just making, you know, up for him. He absolutely deserves the criticism because he hasn't been great, but, you know, second half he massively improved. I felt like that first half they were overloading us down that right side. Even Halliday wasn't having a good game, getting caught, and that was mainly to do with him not being aggressive enough. He wasn't pressing up, he wasn't getting tight, and there were loads of spacing behind them too. And second half, that were non-existent because he was pressing up and being aggressive, and, you know, they found it really hard to break us down that side as well. He put in blocks in, some good last-ditch tackles as well from Oyegoke, which we've seen. So he were composed on the ball. So he got back to what we've seen more recently. So I feel like, you know, no one had a good game at first 20, but the point of Oyegoku, why a lot of people don't want to have talks about renewing him, is because the start of the season, it's happened too often where he's had a few shaky games. And if we want to see progression, if we want to see change in the football club and ambition, then renewing a player like Oyegoku ain't going to really sit well with the fan base.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. And I think in terms of his performances, if you a team that's wanting to be promoted, it needs to be the opposite in terms of you are a good player and you put in good performances for the large part, and you have the odd bad game every now and again, which is like what we've seen with an Andy Cook, a Matty Platt, a Brad Halliday. You know, these are sort of players you've got to build your team around, in my personal opinion. But let's move on then to slightly more positive ventures. Going into box number 4, it's a green box for Andy Cook. Back to his best again yesterday. I thought I had a really, really good game. Worked so hard when Walker got sent off, was isolated really up front when we went down to 10 men, and he still put an absolute shift in for the team. The header though, the goal that he scores, he's 18th of the season, I think 16th in League Two. It's an absolutely outstanding header. We have not had a man who could head the ball like that for as long as what I can remember. You may be going back to your James Anton, Charlie White days, but I think even them two would struggle to score a header like that when he's got to lean so far across and then off balance, get it back in the far corner. It's an absolutely outstanding header and a good ball in from Walker, but Cook still has a lot of work to do. It's not like it's a free header either. I feel like they're the sort of chances which is Andy Cook's bread and butter, where he doesn't have too much time to think about it and it's in the air, it's hung up towards that back post, he can lean on the defender, and it's a really, really good finish from Cook. He gets the assist as well for Walker's first goal, and I just feel like we saw Cook back to being what he has been like for the large part of Bradford City. And I think in the reverse fixture, I'm pretty sure Donovan Daniels had a really good game marking Cook out of it, but I thought Cook dealt with Daniels very well. And like I mentioned earlier, when he was up front on his own and didn't really have much support, he was still going and he was still trying. I think Cook getting that early goal is massive for him. Obviously, he gets that opportunity to wind up their fans a little bit, and they were singing, you know, Andy Cook, what's the score? And that certainly came back to bite them on the backside. I remember their commentators as well, when they went 2-0 up, saying, well, this game's done now. You know, we don't really need to worry about our game. We can focus on other results. And again, that came back to bite them. I'm pretty sure we scored about 20 seconds after that, and that was Andy Cook's goal. And I thought, for me personally, we saw the Cook that we want to see, where he's not moaning and he's just kind of getting on with it, putting a shift in for the team. And I thought not just his goal, not just his assist, not just his hard work, but some of his link-up play at times as well was really nice. And I thought overall, no real complaints from me about Andy Cook's performance yesterday. Certainly a man of the match contender, and as once again come up with the goods. Hopefully he can get another 2 in his remaining 2 games. He's got another former club coming up on Tuesday. Fingers crossed he can score the winner in that one. But Cook for me yesterday, I thought had a really good game, so he gets a green box from me.
Yeah, he's much more than a finisher. You know, his overall play is fantastic, and that's something we've been saying all season, really, since Alexander's come in. He's not a target man. He can hold the ball up for you, but he ain't going to be wrestling with the strikers. He ain't going to be winning massive, you know, headers that are going to be sky high all the time. He was really good on the ground again yesterday, and you know, well worth his praise and the green box. The goal, like you say, unbelievable header to bully Folks, I think it was on the right side, absolutely bullied him, and that header, you know, he's sort of tipping over like the Titanic, and he gets his head on it, tips into bottom right hand corner, and it's a great goal, and he's just a fantastic player. 18 goals for the season, I think it is 2 away from the 20. I think he'll quite comfortably get that now, 2 in the 2 games. I think he'll get more than that against his former club. And shout out to the regular commenter on both our channels, Neil. He commented on mine and he said that Andy Cook's now scored 18 goals against former clubs in his entire career, which is absolutely outstanding when you think about it. He's fired up for those games. He's got another one on Tuesday, and I'm sure he'll do that. But he just doesn't stop running, and you could tell he were knackered those last 10-20 minutes, and he didn't stop running, and he were chasing down defenders, he were holding the ball up, and he remained a focal point for us. And that's the side of the game that, you know, we love. You know, that commitment and that desire that Andy Cook shares is second to none.
Yeah, and just on Andy Cook scoring against his former clubs, I'm pretty sure he said post-match in yesterday's interview that it was just a coincidence, but I don't think it is. I really do think Andy Cook receiving abuse from the opposition fans, it really riles him up and it gets him going and it makes him more and more motivated, and we've seen it against Walsall. I mean, how many times he scored against Walsall, Mansfield, even Tranmere? You know, these 3 of his more recent clubs, the clubs he always seems to score against. It's kind of just Carlisle, really, that he's not scored against. But let's move on then into our penultimate box of today. today's video, it's a yellow box for Sam Walker. Now, again, might be slightly controversial. He did win the social media man of the match, and in the second half was absolutely brilliant. Made 3 or 4 top-class saves, and again, it's kind of similar to Walker. He had, for the large part, a really good game and massively contributed towards the win. But then on the flip side of things, I think he could close down Ryan Sturck better for their first goal. He kind of a little bit rooted to the spot, and it's not one that I expect him to save, but I think if he comes out and tries to smother it, I feel like we might have had more of an opportunity of saving that. He might have potentially tried to force Ryan Sturck into making the decision of trying to go around him, and then you really close that angle down. Who knows what could have happened? You know, it's all if, buts, and maybes, but I think he could potentially, if I'm nitpicking, have done better with that one. He set the standard so high now that I feel like he could have probably done better with that one. And then the second goal is just an absolute calamity. We spoke about him briefly when we talked about Daniel Ugoke. Walker should just come and, for a man who's 6'7", he should come and just absolutely clean everything out. And if he takes all Ugoke and Mofal with him, then it's kind of a bonus, really. But Walker, for me, I think in them sort of moments needs to be more effective in his decision making, because we've seen when it comes to crosses from free kicks and corners and stuff, he's very confident with it, and the opposition don't really kind of want to go near him because of his size. And I feel like that was one of them moments where if Oyegoke is not going to put it out, which he should do, Walker should come and either catch it, punch it, head it, overhead kick it. He just needs to do something. Either of them need to do something to get that ball away from a danger zone. And you've kind of got to credit Mofal for not giving up on it and working really hard, but from the pair of them, it was really poor. Into the second half, though, Walker made some really, really good saves. I mean, that incident in the second half where I think it's Tom Knowles puts the ball into the box, Walker kind of misses it, so does Oyegoke, it hits the far post, rolls along the goal line, then Walker, I think, flicks it onto the other post and somehow it doesn't go in the back of the net. Pretty sure it hit the crossbar as well at some point. I don't no idea how that didn't go into the back of the net, but Walker made another couple decent saves as well. There's one at point blank range, not too far away from the end of the game as well, and I do think he does deserve credit for that. Like I say, on the whole, had a decent game, but I think could have done better, especially for their second goal, but for both goals, in my personal opinion. So that's why it's a yellow box for Sam Walker.
Yeah, he should do better for the second goal. You can argue, but I think as well, know your strengths, but more importantly, know your weaknesses. And I think he's probably, he don't look like the quickest. You know, he's 6'7". He's probably going to be running in cement if he comes chasing that. I think he knows that. I think the defenders now, he's been here since Colchester in January. You know, they should be well accustomed to what they're going to expect from him. They should know now he ain't going to come from that, so just wipe it away. And you know, he's in two minds, so he ends up going for it, and then he completely misses it because of indecisiveness at the back. So I feel like he knows not to come for those. Defenders should know that he ain't going to come for those, so they've got to deal with it. You know, because they can't also then be indecisive if they know what the keeper's going to expect from them. In terms of his, like I say, he's fantastic at commanding his box, especially from the corners and the free kicks. And Walsall, I said earlier, probably right up there for set pieces, because every week they seem to like score from set pieces. And Taylor Allen's got a great cross on him. He always targets the keepers, and they're very direct in around those. And he tried doing it against us. I'm like, you're an idiot, because it's not going to go in. You know, you're not going to score from it. He's going to come and claim it, and then, you know, you're going to try it again and do your own work. Prepare to fail to prepare, Taylor. So, you know, that's something a lot of teams are going to have to think about when coming up against Sam Walker, and that's something that he gives us confidence to the back line, confidence to the fans, and that's what he's great at. I think his distribution's also a bit underrated at times, because football in the modern day, you know, tippy-tappy, you've got to play with your feet, you've got to be able to pass 4 yards to your centre-back and back. But he's really good at his long balls. You know, he plays diags towards Brad Halliday, the pinpoint, he gets the rate right. Sometimes, yeah, they'll take a bounce and they'll go out of play, but it gets up the pitch, and it gives him something to play for. You know, it ain't just straight out on the full, it's with direction, and I think that's something that I think it's underrated. I know a lot might think his distribution isn't great, but I think that's something that does help us. And you know, if it's in the right areas, you're giving your team to get a fighting chance of getting onto a ball, and it helps with Alexander's system. But do you think his distribution's underrated, or do you just think he's not a great distributor of the ball?
Well, I wouldn't say he's as good as Harry Lewis, but they're very different styles of goalkeeper. I think it massively depends where you're playing, because if you're playing on a small pitch like Salford, for example, then if the wind captures it, then his distribution's not going to look good. But then on Walsall, which I think is one of the bigger pitches in the division, I certainly think his distribution, I don't really have any real qualms about. One thing I do like about Walker is, for the large part, everything just goes, it's not even if in doubt, it's just any opportunity, it's first time, just smash it back up the pitch, because the opposition are not really going to score there. I don't really feel like there's many pitches, it's not like the Sunday League where it's going to take 7 million bobbles, and you do sometimes get a little bit nervous if one of the centre-halves maybe slightly overhits a pass, or even if, you're playing on Wembley and the pitch is really flat, it could always take a bobble, because that would just be the most Bradford City thing in the world. But I wouldn't really say I've complaints about his distribution. I did kind of at the start when he signed, but I wouldn't really say I do at the moment. So let's move on then to our final box of today's video. It is a green box for Graham Alexander. Now, again, I mentioned it earlier in today's video. When was the last time Bradford City went 2-0 down, especially away from home, and we managed to fight back and get the 3 points against a team who needed to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive? I know for them it is still technically, mathematically possible, but we're now chasing Doncaster, Crawley and Barrow. We're not really thinking about Walsall all too much. They kind of need a bit of a miracle to get into the playoffs. But Alexander, I thought, while we got it kind of, I wouldn't even say tactically wrong. Yes, you could argue that we were getting overrun in the midfield, but it was 3v3. I think that's more individual to blame on the players rather than the tactics. And once we kind of got a foothold in the game, we got a grip of the game, I thought the game management and the way we saw the game out, it never really felt really nervy. Yes, Walsall were having pressure, as you would expect when they've got the extra man. They're at home, a goal down, they need to win the game. But I never really felt like Walsall were having massively sustained pressure where we had, 16 balls bouncing around our penalty area. We're making 10 million last-ditch blocks. They didn't really have many clear-cut chances. They had a lot of good play, but they kind of lacked that end product a little bit in that second half. And I think that comes down to Alexander and how well he organises defensively. I would maybe argue Lewis Richards should have come onto the pitch for Tyreek Wright a little bit earlier to give us a bit more defensive cover, because I think Wright struggled defensively yesterday, in my personal opinion, and didn't really offer much going forward. I would certainly like to see Lewis Richards start on Tuesday, but Alexander, I don't really have many real complaints. I thought he got, for the large part, everything really spot on. Again, the substitutions, I think, were the right subs to make, bringing on JT and Gilead to go a little bit more defensive once Walker had been sent off. I was surprised to see Adore come on for Kieran Kelly rather than, Lewis Richards, but it worked, so I'm not really going to complain about it. And hopefully Kelly's injury isn't too serious. It probably was just cramp. We know Kieran Kelly can't really play 90 minutes consistently. He does tend to suffer with cramp quite a lot, and I don't know if that's because of his size, because he is an absolute unit. But Alexander, for me, I thought got it all pretty spot on yesterday, so he gets another green box for me. I think that's probably about his 5th in a row now.
Yeah, it's great to see, and like you're sort of saying there, he's proactive, and that sort of makes me question why you were sat in the stands for so much, because there's little things that he tells the players on the touchline. They had a set piece, and I think it were Oyugoki and Halliday on the back post marking their 2 tall players, and then Cook and Platt were marking 2 tiny players. Must have been Sturk and someone else, and he just shouted them to swap. And something so simple, but if he's in the stands, he can't do that. And something as a fan you can clearly see. So that was just a little piece of him, that I picked up that he shouted at, and he's just completely changed the mentality of the squad. You look at us for the last few years, like you say, the last time we came back from and won when we were 2-0 down were actually 2015 against Chelsea, which just goes to show how poor we've been with the mentality and coming back from behind. And that's something that's continued through different managers, hundreds of players, and he's completely changed that mentality. Even under Hughes, if we went 1-0 up, we'd sit back. Sometimes we dropped those wins and turned into draws. We never really came back from behind last season at all. There was Stevenage, and then obviously that continued to start the season. He's just completely changed it, and then 3 of the last 4 games we've been 1-0 down and we've come back to win the game, and that's just an example of change in the mindset of the team. On the other hand, you've got the fact that there's not the idea of nothing to play for in the dressing room, and there's no pressure on. So, you go 1-0 down, you go 2-0 down, there's not that massive threat of anything happening, and you can just play with a bit more freedom, and you're playing for your pride, so you've got to up your performance as it is. So that there's that added incentive, So Tuesday, it's massive, because there's pressure on Tuesday. If we don't win Tuesday, when the fan base is up, there's people... there'll be thousands going now. It will be sold out like it would have been back in February, and there's an expectation to go and win that and then it goes into a final day to get in the playoffs, because now people are expecting it, now people are believing it, now the players have to perform for it, because every time it's happened, we've gone it back into our cage and we look like a wounded dog. You know, we've got to come back now and we've got to keep this run going. And I think Alexander said in his post-match at half-time that he warned the players of that. Are you going to throw your good run away now, or are you going to keep it going? And it's that bit of, just that bit of, not criticism, but it's just that motivation that he's giving the players that fires them up. And I think he understands his players, he understands his football club, and that's why I love him, and I think that's why it's great. So hopefully we get the 3 points Tuesday and take it to the final game. And I believe Mark Bauer's going, who's got a fantastic away record with BBC Radio Leeds. I'll be wearing my lucky shorts, and let us know in the comments down below if you've got any superstitions that you'll be continuing on Tuesday.
I think, like you say, Tuesday is a massive test because the pressure hasn't really been on the last couple of matches. Everyone has kind of come to the realization that the season is definitely done. But now, while it's probably an outside chance, I think it's still a realistic chance. And Tuesday, the pressure is on. Can we get the job done? Barrow picked up 1 point out of the last possible 15. We've picked up 13. It would just be classic Bradford City to either lose this game or win this one and then mess it up against Newport. I mean, our last 2 games, you couldn't really be asking for any on paper easier games, because Barrow and Newport County, in terms of the recent form guide, are the bottom 2 teams in the division. They are the worst in terms of their form. But this is Bradford City we're talking about, and we have been here many times before. But we will leave it there then for today's video. Thank you all very much for tuning in. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try to 80 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so, and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below your thoughts on our 6 talking points from today's video. That being Jamie Walker, Richie Smallwood, Daniel Ugoke, Andy Cook, Sam Walker, and Graham Alexander. Go check out Korban's channel as well. The link to that, as always, is down in the description down below. Thank you all for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you all very soon for another one. Peace.